Hi, and welcome back to the Love the Mom podcast. I am your host, Jerry, and I am joined by my spontaneous mother, Christy.
Do you write these down ahead of time?
No, I just
It's just off the dome.
I just think of an adjective.
I love it. All right. Hello, everyone.
Yeah. Well, we have a fun episode ahead because we watched the hit Coen Brothers classic, Raising Arizona. And this is one I saw back in high school, but I have not seen since. And this was one that you were wanting to see. So I thought it was a great pick here. Um, and you mentioned last week that like it was on your list. So
hmm
like, what had you heard about it going in? Like, why were you anticipating this one?
Well, I feel like this is one of those movies that you see bandied about.
Oh, sure.
When people talk about movies, you hear about Raising Arizona. It's got a lot of really iconic people in it, which is appealing to me. I really enjoy John Goodman.
Oh, he's great.
He's the best, and um, yeah, so I really enjoy him, and I've heard good things about it. And again, it's one that I feel like people talk about.
hmm
I was talking to my sister Kara this week, and she's like, "Oh, I don't know how that movie's going to hold up. Like, I really like
Oh,
it, but I don't know how it's going to hold up." So that comment made me a little apprehensive. So I was like, "Oh, I don't know why you're saying that, but okay, we'll see." And
yeah.
I thought it was great. I loved it. I thought it was very fun.
Yeah, I don't know what she's talking about. This movie is fantastic.
I don't know. And she had said too, like it's been a long time since I've seen it.
Oh,
So
sure.
so it may just be that her recollection was not accurate. I mean, especially
Could
since
be.
it's an older movie, it may have been a while since she's seen it.
Yeah.
Tell me how you feel about it, Jerry.
Oh, I thought it was phenomenal. I rated it 5 stars.
5 stars.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness,
It's
look
now
at you.
it's my second favorite Coen Brothers movie now.
Okay, what's your first?
Fargo.
Fargo. Okay.
Fargo is one of my favorites of all time.
Okay. Well, I've never seen a Coen Brothers movie, I don't think. I think
Really?
this might have been my first one.
Wow.
I've
So,
never seen Fargo. What are some of their others? Tell me some of their other movies.
well, they did "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" They did "The Big Lebowski." Um, they did "Burn After Reading." They did "Oh Caesar." I'm not sure. Milton. Oh, True Grit. The new True Grit.
Oh, okay.
They've done a lot of stuff. A lot of
I
great.
haven't seen any of those.
Okay, none of those.
Oh,
May-
none.
okay, well maybe we'll do "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" because that one's a lot of fun.
Is that the George Clooney?
It is.
And they sing a song in it, right?
They sure do, and it is a great
Okay.
song.
So I think I've probably seen clips of them singing the song, but I don't think I've seen the whole movie.
That one's
So
great.
yes, this is my first Coen Brothers.
Oh boy,
So I know this is such an exciting day.
I know. And we did a fun Coen Brothers movie. They tend to swing around where it's like they'll go from something like Raising Arizona to like True Grit. Not that those
Mm,
are like they came out right after each other. But True Grit is very serious. There's not a lot of like funny moments, whereas this one is basically all funny moments. This one is
mhm.
very similar to Breakin' 2 in that it is a live action cartoon. Um,
Yeah, it really is.
Nothing is taken
Really
really
is.
seriously. The bad guy on the bike is like cartoonishly evil.
Uh-huh.
And I just thought he was great.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, yeah, very, very interesting guys, the Coen brothers.
Just had a revelation.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we'll talk about it later.
Oh,
We'll talk about it later because
okay.
it's later in the movie, but yeah, okay, I have to think about this a little bit. I'll think about it and process it while we're chatting,
All
but yeah,
right.
I have a thought. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I just wanted to make sure. I think this might be their first movie.
Mm,
Um, Let me see if that is correct. Okay, it's not. I forgot about Blood Simple.
okay.
Blood
Never
Simple is their first one. It's pretty good.
mm,
Uh, I don't like it as much as everyone else does. There's a pretty big group of people that would say that's their best, um, and I would not agree with that. But uh, they follow up Blood Simple, which is like a neo noir, like it's like a crime thriller. they follow that up with Raising Arizona, which is like it's
Okay.
complete polar opposite. And I think it's interesting. They do tend to swing. And I was like, okay, I have a feeling because I like the fun stuff
Mhm.
generally. Fargo's kind of a nice in between. Where like I like the fun stuff. I like, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, Big Lebowski, stuff like that. Like I bet there's one of the brothers that I like and one that I don't.
Oh, okay, this is an interesting theory.
And
Alright.
I think my theory was proven correct
Mm,
because recently they split up. And by recently, I mean in the last 5 years or so.
okay.
And they both made uh, a movie, and they're very different, as you can
Okay.
imagine. I saw the one that Joel Cohen made, The Tragedy of Macbeth, which I think the screenplay is just straight up Macbeth. They keep all of the Shakespearean language. It's black and white. Denzel Washington is in it. I think it's
Mm,
A24. It's
I remember when you went to go see that.
Yeah, it's very, very artsy. And I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, okay. This is the guy I don't like. I like Ethan Cohen. And so, oh, and I forgot No Country for Old Men. That's one of theirs too.
Oh, that's a big one.
That's
Wow.
probably their biggest.
Yeah, that is a big one.
And I
I
just
haven't seen
rewatched
that
that.
either. I haven't seen that one either.
Oh, well, yeah, you would not like that one.
No. I heard an interview recently with Josh Brolin. Wasn't he in that?
He is, yeah.
Kind
He's
of
like,
like his big role to bring him back to the forefront, I think was my understanding
yeah,
in
because
the
he's the main character in that, or one of
Okay.
them.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so I was like, I think I like Ethan Cohen. And I think that's pretty much true. Cause then Ethan Cohen made uh it was I don't remember what it is, but it was like two lesbian girls that go on like a crime road trip. I never saw it, but like the trailer looked like weird and quirky. And I'm like, okay, this is the guy who does like the fun stuff. I think that movie like was pretty poorly received, so I don't know
Oh,
if it
that's
was very good.
bad.
But I
Mhm.
think recently I heard they're getting back together. I don't know why they split up.
That was gonna be my next question. Like, was there any buzz about why? Okay.
I don't know. I think they were just like, we're too different now. We need
Hmm.
to do our own thing. I think Ethan Cohen before that lesbian movie came out, he was like, I'm gonna make a play. And so then he did. And I don't know if I've heard anything about it, but then he came back to movies and now they're back together.
Hmm.
I don't know. It's kind of interesting.
That is interesting, I think, too. They both have, well, maybe they both have a different style of content that they're interested in, but
Sure.
they obviously complement each other well because they're both working on both types of movies.
Mhm.
And so maybe it is a mix of the two things together that make them so successful. It's
Yeah.
the having a mix of serious and light with the tone obviously kind of vacillating what you're talking about,
Yeah.
but still having input from two people who have very different tastes on things, it seems.
Yeah, I
That's
think
cool.
that's what makes them really special. And like
Mhm.
why this movie is in particular is so special. Where it's a comedy. It's
Mhm.
a crime comedy, but the end of the movie is so sentimental. And
Mhm.
like I was like, wow, this is like really profound. Like out of
Mhm.
nowhere in this funny like Who Framed Roger Rabbit-esque like cartoon comedy. And then it's just like I see me and Ed and we're reminiscing and we're old and all of our kids are around. And I'm like, this is just so sweet. Like this
It is.
took a really nice turn
Mhm.
in a way that I wasn't really expecting. So
Yeah.
it is a nice balance where like I feel like, especially late 80s, you have like like the Wayne's World movie and like Tommy
Mhm.
Boy. And it's like those are just straight up comedies, not a whole lot of dimensions to them. But this feels like, I mean, it's about like the plight of like people who want to have children and can't. And it's like, it's talking about bigger things. And I was
Mhm.
like, wow, that is really, really cool. I liked it a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah, I liked it too. You're right. There are a lot of significant themes under this really silly movie.
Yeah.
Um, and there's things in there where you think about the way the prison system works and
Oh, yeah.
recidivism.
Hmm.
and yeah, and family relationships, and yeah, it's so it does have a lot of very deep themes underneath all the crazy hair and the,
Right.
I loved his hair so much.
It's like different in every single scene too. It's never
No,
consistent.
I know. And then, like when he's doing something more serious, he's got it all laid down and looking good. And then the next scene, it's like crazy again. And I really liked it. I was sitting there, I think it was about 15 to 20 minutes in, and I was doing like the barky laugh, like the like that when I'd
Oh
hear
yeah.
something funny. And I was like, I'm actually doing these barky laughs a lot. Like, it's not that
Mm,
it's these long, drawn out scenes of comedy.
sure.
It is these moments, and it's just a moment, and then they're on to the next thing. You can't sit and laugh too long at it because you'll miss whatever's next.
Right.
Yeah, there were just so many things. I loved, there was a line she did in there, and I can't remember all of the names she had in it, but she's like, I love Bible names. And then
Oh
it was, I think there was one Bible name in the list, and the last one was Tab
yeah.
or Tad, one of the two. And I was like,
It's like
oh gosh, she's
yeah,
so funny.
Frances McDormand. Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
was that? I
it's
think that was
Frances.
Holly Hunter, wasn't it?
No, Frances McDormand's the one saying you need to name
That
her
said
Bible names. If I had
that.
another one, I would name her.
Oh, look at you quoting it. You're so good. Well, yeah. So here's the thing, Frances McDormand. I know she's in their movies,
Oh, she's
and I
fantastic.
saw her show up, and I did not recognize her.
Yeah.
Like the sweet, smiley Southern accent. I'm so used to the clips from Fargo where she's
Oh,
got
yeah.
South Dakota accent.
Uh-huh.
Fargo, South Dakota, yeah.
Yeah.
When she's got that accent, and to see her with a Southern accent in this wig with makeup on, which you never see her with makeup on either. She's usually very natural faced.
Yeah.
I actually, that was when I jumped on IMDb because I was like, I think that's her, but I cannot be sure that that's her.
Right.
What a transformation!
Yeah.
It was it was kind of bananas, but I loved her character. She was great, so
Yeah.
good. Like
In
you
the
can
in
see why she uses them or why they use her all the time.
well, I mean, here's some more backstory.
Yeah.
Uh, when they were, I think, I don't know if they were out of college, but as they were starting to get into movies, the Coen brothers, Sam Raimi, and Frances McDormand all lived in an apartment together. They were all roommates.
Okay.
And so the Coen brothers show up in a couple of Sam Raimi movies. Frances McDormand is in Dark Man. They're just like all kind of connected in this really kind of fun way. And now Frances McDormand is married to Joel Cohen.
Okay.
So
I
that's
thought
why
it
she shows up a lot.
Okay. Have they been married for almost the whole entirety of their working together?
I think so.
Well, that makes a lot of sense then
Yeah.
because I was like either she's their muse or something. I mean, it's like who's Wes Anderson and how he has his favorites, and you know
Yes.
that these people, Owen Wilson's going to show up,
And
and
Bill Murray and
Bill
Jeff
Murray's going to
Goldblum.
show up.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so I always think of Frances McDormand when I think of the Coen brothers.
Sure. Yeah. I think
So,
John Goodman too. John
oh, does
Goodman's in like every
oh, he's in
single
the Big
one.
Lebowski,
He
right?
sure is. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think he's in, well, he's not in Fargo. I think he's in, well, he's in Raising Arizona. Uh, oh man, he's not in No Country for Old Men. I always associate him as being a Coen Brothers guy, but maybe he's just in a couple. But I
Mm.
always like, I think
Well,
Big
those
Lebowski
are
and
two really funny
yeah.
ones. I'm sorry I interrupted you. Yeah, those are two funnies. I like it.
Well, I just think like his character in The Big Lebowski and this character in Raising Arizona are so distinct, and I'm like, oh
Mm,
well, they just they're always together. But I think it's just those are the most memorable characters in those movies.
right, right.
Um, but yeah, yeah. I guess we can talk a little bit more about the cast because this thing is stacked. We
It is.
mentioned a little bit, but Nick Cage in this movie,
Mm.
very very early Nick Cage before the persona kind of set in.
But you can
Um,
see glimpses of it,
little
like the
glimpses.
quirkiness. And I think I've seen he was in the one with Cher. Oh, I can't think of the name of it at the moment. It'll just pop in my head all of a sudden. Anyway, he was very quirky in that movie as well. So, um, and this is also before he got his teeth fixed. Like,
Oh
I
yeah.
was like, "Oh, wow, those are his original teeth." Ugh, it's something with moon in it. What is it, Jerry?
Is it
Something
Moonstruck?
Moonstruck, thank you. I kept
Okay.
wanting to say Moonlight, and I
Oh no,
know
it's
that's right. Moonstruck. Yeah, he was in there. I remember that being one of the first movies I'd ever seen him in, and he had he's not a typical leading man sort of
Mm-mm.
person. He's got this high voice, it's kind of squeaky, which makes him really perfect for this role, but he's so dang likable
Oh yeah.
in this movie. He is so likable in this movie, and generally, I'm not like, "Oh, Nick Cage, you have my heart," but he did in this one. I really liked his character. He was so sweet. He just cared about Ed so much, and he didn't always make the best choices, but you could tell he had a good heart anyway,
Yeah.
No. Okay, go ahead. Nick Cage, yes, that's exciting.
Well, one of those, like, one of the moments that I really loved that highlighted that, like, kindness in his soul is when the swingers are over and when what's his Glenn, the guy he socks, he was like,
Yes.
what's the kid's name?" And he was like, "It's Ed Jr." And then when Dot asks Ed what the baby's name is, she says, "Hi, Junior." And I'm like, "That's just so cute. That's so G dang cute." But, like, those scenes are taking place at the same time, and it's just like, man,
Yeah.
you can tell that those 2 are like soulmates, and I love
Oh,
that.
it's the sweetest. It's the sweetest. And I love the way they meet. I love that she's the photographer doing the mug shots, and that like he cares about her. When he comes in the second time and she's crying, I'm like, he's just so sweet and he remembers her name. And
Mhm.
I don't know. I just thought that whole uh when you're seeing him come through multiple times, and every time their relationship builds in this small 5-minute window.
Mhm.
Uh, and then when he proposes to her when she's doing his fingerprints or whatever. It's like, this is so sweet. It's so cute.
It is. There's
Oh,
so much heart in this movie.
there really is. Okay. I loved it. Okay.
Yeah, but Nick Cage is great, but also
Yeah.
Holly Hunter is also
Mhm.
phenomenal as Ed too. A
Mm.
perfect foil to High. Um, where I feel like they're a really great duo. And I never like, they never, did anything together again, I don't think. But man, they really play off each other really well. But I guess Nick Cage, I guess he does still kind of do comedies, but he's kind of all over the place with what he does these days.
He is. It kind of feels like he kind of went through a phase where he was doing a lot of action movies like
Yeah.
Face Off and
Yeah.
the National Treasure movies and that kind of stuff. I think what I liked about them together was the juxtaposition of him being a mess, an absolute mess all of the time.
Hmm.
And she and a large he's not a huge guy. Like I noticed when he was standing up against the mugshot board that he's only like 6 feet tall. He's not
Yeah.
huge, but he looks huge next to her
Right.
because she's so tiny. And they play up on that. Like there's a couple places where the camera angles, you can see her looking up at him and him looking down at her. But she is this extremely put together, um, meticulous, organized person, and he is just an absolute mess. And I think it's a great depiction of like those opposite attract sort of
Hmm.
relationships. Um, I just thought she was so it was like I know that it was funny. There were scenes that I knew were supposed to be funny
Yeah.
that were also, when you really sit and think about them, like the saddest. And then you feel bad because you're laughing at something that's so sad. But it's the scene where at the doctor's office
Oh
and
yeah.
the doctor's standing there smiling as he's showing the diagram of the women's anatomy.
Yeah.
And he's smiling as he's telling this news. And she is absolutely falling apart, like sobbing,
Hmm.
uncontrollable sobbing. And he has his arm around her. Nick has his arm around her. And it was just this really interesting. And there's so much of that in this
Oh yeah.
where it's like the emotions aren't matching what's happening here, or, you know, there are things about that that's funny. Like her crying was so over the top that, like, you couldn't help to kind of chuckle a little bit because she was crying in such an over the top way.
Sure.
However, like the real truth of that is that, she's devastated and he loves her so much and he just wants her to be happy. And
Mhm.
like that's some really deep, deep, deep subject matter.
Yeah.
Um, I thought she was fantastic. I don't feel like you see her in roles like that very often. I feel the things that I see her in, I always think of the voice of
Yeah.
Helen,
Elastigirl. Yeah.
uh-huh, in Incredibles, or she was in The Piano, won an Oscar for The Piano. Talk about a serious movie. That's like super serious movie.
Oh, I don't know if I've seen that one.
It is her and Anna Paquin,
Okay.
and Anna Paquin won. She's I don't remember how old she was. I did an Oscars question on this the other day when I was playing online. I'm thinking she was 10 or 11 when she won. Like she's
Oh,
one of the
wow.
youngest Oscar winners. She's up there with like Tatum O'Neal.
Okay.
Uh, so anyway, Anna Paquin was super young, and then Holly Hunter had the lead, and it was this really, really sad movie.
Mm.
And so it was kind of weird to see her in this because I'm like, wow, look at her being funny. I really like that. She looks so young. I don't know. I enjoyed her so much. I love her voice. It's so distinctive in
Oh,
her.
yeah.
I don't know. They did a
Yeah.
really good job casting this movie, I want to say.
Oh,
Like the cast
yeah.
was excellent.
Because I feel like this is like everybody right before they blew up. Like John Goodman, this is a really early role for him, early role for
Hmm.
Frances McDormand, too.
Hmm.
I gotta shout out my guy, Emmett Walsh. He's a funny character actor guy, but he's the guy who works at the steel mill with High, and he's the one that's telling the
Oh,
story every single time.
absolutely. I tried to find him. I tried to find him because he is that guy. He's the
He's
guy where
Emmett
you see him and
Walsh.
you're like, man, I've seen him in a million things. And I think you did a deep dive on him recently because he died recently, right?
I did, yeah, yeah. I watched a couple movies that he's in. He,
Hmm.
I think he died last year. Um,
Okay.
I think, yeah, last year he was 89.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, he was like still in movies. He had a movie that came out this year already.
Wow.
He just worked forever, and he is just one of the funniest character actor guys.
That's great.
And he's just in everything. Like,
Can you
uh,
give me
w-
some other examples of what he's in?
well, I think what he's probably most known for is his role in Blood Simple.
Mm.
That's basically the one where he isn't a character actor. He's like the main villain in that.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and he's very good in that. He's in Blade Runner of all things. He plays Harrison Ford's chief.
Okay.
And there's like a very famous scene where like he's explaining the case to Harrison Ford, and there's like this projector that's like blaring right next to him. He has like these shadows all over his face. I'm like, this is the
Mhm.
most epic Emmett Walsh has ever looked. Um, I'm looking through his IMDb right now. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. Like he's in like Racing Stripes. He was in
Oh,
Home Improvement.
oh, I loved Home Improvement.
I think if you looked at this, I'm sure that you would see like everything that you
Yeah.
recognize.
Yeah, I think I
Um,
would too. Like, I know when I saw him, I immediately had a recognition,
yeah.
of his face. So I'm sure he's just been in a million things that you
Oh,
just never really notice.
he was in what is that freaking movie? Ordinary People.
Oh, I haven't seen that,
Yeah. I
but
was
you
like,
did.
yes, I think that was part of the M. Emmett Walsh deep dive I did.
Oh, okay.
He's in the original The Jerk
Okay, I've seen that.
and
It's been a
Starsky
long
and
time
Hutch. I had to dig through to find his stuff from the 70s.
though.
But yeah, he's like in an episode of the Rockford Files, and like he's
Oh,
just like, I don't know, he's like in one episode of everything. He's just been
seems like
around.
he's everywhere because
Yeah.
sometimes you come across a character actor like that where it's like, okay, I know I've seen you in something more substantial. A great example of that, sir, is the person that played Glenn. Can't remember his name off
Yes.
the top of my head. I
Uh
had to look him up during the movie because I knew that he played a boss. That's what I knew.
yes.
I was like, whatever role I've seen him in, he played a boss. So I started scrubbing his IMDb, trying to find it, and He played Chandler's boss on Friends
Okay.
on 3 episodes, just 3 episodes, and I remembered very vividly. I was like, "Oh, yeah, he's the guy that spanks his butt." It's
Oh.
constantly spanking his butt, and Chandler's trying to avoid him because of that. And I was like, "Man, 3 episodes, and I remember this dude's face when he shows up on, in this movie." It was such a well, that was kind of an iconic role too. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't a huge role, but it was one that episode really centered on that storyline, so, anyway, I
Yeah.
thought it was
I'm looking at that guy's or his roles. Sam McMurray is his name. He does a ton of voice work.
mhm.
Like throughout the 90s and 2000s, he was in like Johnny Bravo and Rugrats and Angry Beavers, like some of the first Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network shows.
Hmm.
Like that's really cool.
Yeah, now that I think about it and you think about his voice, he really does have a really he has a nice voice.
Yeah,
I mean, I can hear it in my head, and it makes sense that he would do voice work
a ton of
'cause
voice
that's
work.
a great voice.
Yeah, and he's even in The Sopranos. That
Oh,
that might be where I recognized him. He's only in one episode.
really?
I think he plays one of the doctors that's working on one of the characters. I won't say
Okay.
anything because I don't want to do a stray spoiler for Sopranos in this
Don't
review of
do it. Yeah, he was a person that he was the only one that I went out and looked up just because
Oh,
well, other
sure.
than I was looking for the dude you were talking about,
Emmett
but no.
Walsh. Yeah.
Yes, I looked for him, and then, yeah, then it was Glenn. I was like, "Glenn, Glenn, Glenn, I know you, Glenn," and I was searching, 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 and I found him, and then it was like light bulbs everywhere. I love when you find the thing you're looking for. It's not crazy. I know you. Anyway.
So suffice to say, as an all-star cast. I mean, if
All
you have
star
if you have Emmett Walsh in your cast, it's
cast.
guaranteed to be a slam dunk.
Yeah, absolutely.
um,
Yeah, I didn't recognize the guy that played the motorcycle dude. I kind of felt like maybe I should know him, but I didn't look him up.
he really looked familiar, and when I looked at his
Mhm.
IMDb, I didn't recognize anything. And I'm
Okay.
like, man, I know that face. So I know he's
Yeah.
in something, but
Mhm.
I'm not
Mhm.
sure.
Hmm. Yeah, I really liked it. I enjoyed the scene with the babies crawling all over the room and Nick Cage getting all sweaty trying to wrangle them and I don't know, and they're just sweet little faces and their smiles and
Yeah.
the I don't know. Like you could have just had the baby be more ancillary, but I think I liked that they would zoom in on his face and you would see those facial expressions so that
Yeah.
you grow to love him too. And you're like, I can see why all of these people fall in love with this baby and everybody wants him because he's so cute.
That's one thing I love is that it's literally every character.
Yes,
Like
every single character.
they steal the baby, and then the fugitives steal the baby, and they love the baby. Francis
Mhm,
McDormand loves the baby.
mhm.
I think if the motorcycle guy had the baby for long enough, then I think the motorcycle guy probably would have loved him too.
I loved them strapping him to the front of that motorcycle. I love that they kept leaving him on the top of the car too. Oh my gosh. It was so funny. And the Huggies product placement in this
Oh
movie
yeah,
was so much. Oh, I really enjoyed it a lot. I just thought it was very, very fun. I
yeah,
can see why people love it so much.
I can too. But I
Mhm.
don't know. I don't know if I shared this story. I'm sure I did last week. But I watched this movie in high school because at the time I was dating a girl and her dad loved this movie and she hated
Mm,
it. And so
mhm.
she gave me a VHS copy and she said, "You need to watch this because I need backup because I'm always losing against my dad in these arguments." And then I watched it. I'm like, "You're dead wrong. This movie's great."
Oh, no.
And that's probably why we broke up. But
That probably is. That's it.
that's probably it.
If you can't agree on Raising Arizona, what do you have?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I thought it was really great. It makes me think back because there are some things as and I don't know if this is just distinctive to their style of
Mm.
movie making, but there are things where you're sometimes a little on, you're teetering on some, we talked about this a little bit last week, like uncomfortable when we were talking about the Christmas story.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, there's just something that feels off about that. There were scenes in this where I was like, oh, this could go. And I think I was a little nervous about it to be
Mm.
like, oh, this could go in a really weird direction that I may not enjoy because it might be too weird.
Oh,
But they teeter on that edge and then they bring it back. And
sure.
I think the way they bring it back into, you'll have some really bizarro scenes, but then they bring it back to the heart.
Right.
And I think that's the difference. I feel like in Christmas Story, and we're talking about a movie that we have not watched, whatever. We're not supposed to be talking about it. However,
It's fine.
like we were talking about the fact that it was, um, there's something visually about it that is a little off kilter, and I feel the
Mm.
same way about Richard, or not Richard Burton,
Tim
wrong,
Burton.
wrong Burton, um, Tim Burton movies the same way, but this one I feel it could go that direction, and then they bring it back, and
Right.
then it kind of goes into the absurd, and then they bring it back, and it's that bringing it back that keeps me interested. If it
Right.
had kept going in this really crazy direction, I don't know that I would have liked it as much.
Sure.
I think it's the heart in this movie. I think uh it's the feelings that the like positive feelings, and even though people are making bad choices on a pretty regular basis, like you can understand why. I mean, you
Right.
feel you want good things for them, even though they're not doing a very good thing, you want good things for them.
Right.
um at the end of the movie where the dad, when Arizona comes in and he sees them with the baby and stuff, and I was like, he was so kind to them. I was waiting for him to be like, you can just have the baby, we have four, we have plenty. Like I was kind of waiting for them to say that, for him to say that.
Yeah, that would have
But
been
the
a little
fact
bit too
that,
much.
yeah, I agree. But I think where they had come up with the idea is, oh, I got him, we took him back from Mean Motorcycle Man. They could have gotten away with that.
Yeah.
But he saw how much they loved him, this baby. I think he could see that. And so, when you see someone who they obviously weren't there for the money,
Yeah.
and then he showed kindness, way more kindness than is called for sure.
Oh yeah.
But I was glad that it wasn't like we're going to bring down the hammer and we're going to like here come the cops, or that he didn't just give them the baby. I'm glad that it was what it was. I
Yeah.
felt like they handled that very deftly. I liked it.
Yes. There's a lot more nuance than you would get in a normal comedy, where it's
Mm.
like, this guy's big bad business and he sends the greedy henchman. He doesn't even send the motorcycle guy after him. The
Mhm.
motorcycle guy just shows up and says, I'm going to steal your baby. You either pay my bounty or I'm going to sell it to someone else. It's like
Mhm.
reluctantly he sends the
Yeah.
motorcycle guy after him. And I
Mhm.
and I love that, where it isn't just like this huge like stereotype where it's like, oh, he's evil big businessman. It feels like this is a real person. And even
Mhm.
though like in the beginning, they play his commercials, and then even like when the press comes to like interview him about his missing kid, he's still plugging his store.
Mhm.
And even in that final scene, he's like, "Well, I could do the bounty as cash, or if you want credit." And it's like, okay, he's still plugging, but at the
Yeah.
end, that all of that facade goes away, and you can see that, like, okay, he seems like a decent person.
Yeah.
And I really liked that.
Mhm.
Because like it just, man, this movie just has a big old beating heart. And it's like,
Mhm.
man, just it feels like everybody's like, by the end of it, it's like everyone's trying to do the best they can. Even the
Yeah.
fugitives, they for some reason they crawl back in the tunnel. They don't just turn themselves in.
Yeah. Yeah. I liked the part where I can't remember if it's the part where uh I'm trying to remember what's happening concurrently, but the part where they're coming out of the ground
Oh,
and it's like a birth scene.
yeah.
I don't know if you, and then there was something with the baby at that time. I don't remember if he was taking the babies at that time or they were learning about that they couldn't have babies. I can't remember how that lined up, but there were two things
Oh,
that had to do with having children where Ed and Hi are going through something over here, and then those guys are being birthed out of the ground, and his brother is pulling the legs of the other brother to it's like, oh gosh, this is so funny, the juxtaposition of those two things. And truly, you don't even need those guys in this movie
No,
as far as you're looking at the plot of it, and it's like these guys are definitely not necessary and not
no.
essential to the plot. But dang it, if they aren't a good time, I really enjoy them.
Yeah.
I just really enjoy them. It's like they're just there to enjoy.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
no real purpose for them to be there.
They're so
Uh,
skeezy too, where they're like always trying to manipulate High, and John Goodman has this like, "Are you gonna, what are you gonna let her boss you around now?" I'm like,
yeah.
oh, that's just so funny. Maybe that's the part where she was like, where Kara was like, I don't know if that's gonna age well. Where it's like, who wears the
Oh,
pants around here? High.
oh.
And,
Yeah, I don't really know. That's interesting because Tyson said the same thing. Her husband said the same thing. Oh, I don't know how that's going to hold up. But it could
mm,
also be, humors change over
yeah,
time. And maybe they haven't seen it in a long time and they're like, oh, maybe it's
yeah.
too slapsticky or maybe,
Oh, maybe.
but I didn't feel like there was anything in there that was, completely inappropriate
No.
or like had not aged well, especially because it's a comedy. Sometimes you can get away with more because
Oh
you're
yeah.
poking fun at
Hmm.
things. Um, but yeah, I loved I also loved, like, the name of all the babies.
Oh yeah.
Harry, Larry, Gary, that's all these airy names. And then it's oh my gosh, what's the guy's
Nathan
name?
Jr.
Nathan Jr., thank you, oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot that.
Nathan,
And then
Arizona.
you look at the blanket, and it has their names on the blanket too. I don't know if you noticed that. It was, like, knitted into the blanket,
Oh, I
all of
didn't
their
notice that.
underneath where every baby lays. I don't know. It was just so cute. It was so great.
That was.
And I love the Dr. Spock book. They're passing the Dr. Spock book around like, I'm gonna take this baby, but I better take this instruction manual so I know what I'm doing."
I love that he's like, and here's the instructions as he
Yeah.
hands the baby to Ed. Yeah, that was one thing that I thought was really clever was that in the reveal of the babies, the punchline, the Nathan Jr. is obscured for a minute. And
Mm,
there's like some
mhm,
pretty clever filmmaking things where it's like they pan over, but it's like an
mhm,
over the
mhm.
shoulder shot. So
Yes.
his shoulder is covering Nathan Jr. and then they zoom out and then it's like in the back corner. And just where Nick Cage is standing is right where the Nathan Jr. sign is. And they
Mhm,
wait for that payoff. And I'm like, okay, that's
mhm.
really, really smart.
Yes.
In a way that isn't
And
like
just like
drawing attention to it. It feels almost unintentional, but
mhm,
you can tell where it's like that's very specific. They're very specifically covering up that nameplate. So it's like,
mhm.
well, we have to pay off this joke.
Yes. Well, and I think your eyes can't help but be drawn to it. I
Oh
noticed the
yeah.
exact same thing.
Hmm.
Like, you're waiting for that because it's gonna be something real funny. You
Right.
know it's gonna be funny. And how they use that throughout the movie, exactly what you're talking about. Well, yeah, no, it's Ed Jr., it's Hi Jr., it's whatever, it's
Right.
just
It's
Junior.
just Junior. And then like when they steal the baby and she asks, which one is it? It's Nathan Jr., I think. And then when Nathan Arizona is asked by the press, which one got stolen? Nathan Jr., I think. It's like not even he can keep it straight. And he says the same
No.
exact thing that I says. And it's like, oh, that's just lovely.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, it
really
was very
great.
funny. It was very funny. Okay, so here's my revelation from earlier in the podcast.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about it. Okay, so he early in the movie, we hear that Hi said that both of his parents are dead.
Oh,
Um,
I don't remember that,
because
but I believe you.
yes, he was talking to the two guy. It was when he was talking to the brothers, and they were
Oh,
like, "Oh, something with
oh, balloons. That's
why
fun.
is that happening?
I don't know. I've never seen that before.
What in the world?"
For our audio listeners, some balloons just popped up on my mom's camera for some reason.
Yeah, like a giant bouquet of balloons came up right in front of my face. What a weird thing. Okay, I have no idea how that happened.
I don't know
Okay,
either.
um, so yeah, he's talking to the brothers, and they're trying to explain the baby and like blah blah blah, and they're he they said something about I think Ed said something about High's parents, either
Mm.
dad or mom or something. And one of the guys says, "Oh, I thought your parents were dead."
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And oh, yeah. Okay, so we see Nick Cage's tattoo, and then at the end, when he's with the bicycle man has the same tattoo. The motorcycle man has the same
Hmm.
tattoo.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah, and I was like, I wonder if that's his dad. If he thought his parents were dead,
Hmm.
or if his dad left and so he just told people that his dad was dead.
Could be.
And by the time he sees that tattoo, I'm pretty sure he had already pulled the pin on the grenade.
Yeah.
I can't remember if that happened before or after he saw the tattoo, but it was such a purposeful shot of that tattoo that it looked like Woody Woodpecker. I don't know if that's what it was, but it
Yeah.
kind of looked like Woody Woodpecker. And it was just a flash, and I noticed it, and then so then as we were talking just now about the motorcycle man, that's kind of where it came to my mind is I wonder if that was his dad,
Maybe. I,
because who else has the exact same Woody Woodpecker tattoo? Like, was that a memory? Because you could almost see something
mm,
come across his face
yeah.
at that point. Um, but then I was trying to remember, had he already pulled the pin? I think he had, because he had already fallen to the ground.
Yeah.
There was no saving him at that point.
Right.
And then he said, "I'm sorry," didn't he?
He says, I forgot what he said. It's something. It's like, or he says too late. It's like, I'm gonna do something not too late. And then he shows the pin or something.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah. Anyway, I just I just wonder about that.
Yeah,
Is
I
that part of
wondered
the story?
about that too, because I'm like, they never explained that. Like, was
No.
that like a cut scene or something where they explain the tattoo? But
Mhm.
like the tattoo isn't like super, I mean, it's kind of memorable and they like do a couple close-ups on Nick Cage's.
Yep.
They do the other tattoo that he has where it's like what mom didn't love me or something. The
Oh,
biker guys has.
yes, yeah. My mama doesn't love me or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
So yeah, I was kind of wondering about that, but that's a good theory. I wonder if that's true.
Yeah, I guess, why would they show why would they, because they showed Nick Cage's tattoo a couple times leading up to that.
Yeah.
But they never really addressed it. Like, why are they showing this tattoo? I don't get it. There
Yeah.
has to be some significance to it, because otherwise they wouldn't highlight that for any reason.
No.
For no
Yeah,
reason.
and it's specific, but like there isn't like a scene early on where Ed's like, "What kind of tattoo is that?" He's like, "Well, this is
Right.
my dad's tattoo. We both worked at an automotive shop." Because I think
Right.
that's like a logo for car parts.
Oh, is it?
Um,
Okay.
yeah, because Sam Raimi in Spider-Man 1, there's a scene where Spider-Man is beating up some crooks in an alleyway. That's the scene where the infamous upside down Mary Jane kiss happens.
Okay.
In
Yep.
that alleyway, there is a sign or a billboard that is for that like auto
Is it
parts
Pet
thing.
Boys?
Maybe it might be. That kind of sounds familiar.
Mhm. I think that might be it.
But it's for that thing, and there's like a spotlight shining on it. And
Mm.
so like I don't know if it's ever been confirmed if that's like for sure that was a little nod to Raising Arizona, but it could be.
Okay, it is not Pet Boys.
Okay.
'Cause I'm looking at their logo right now, and that's not it.
Okay.
Interesting. That's interesting. Um, yeah, I mean, there's probably stuff out there that talks about it.
Yeah, probably.
I'll have to look after we're done
Yeah.
to see.
Recollection correction.
That's right. Recollection Correction Corner. Look at how quickly I said that, and without stumbling over it.
We're getting it.
Get better and better. Amazing. Yeah,
Uh,
I really enjoyed that. I
yeah.
thought that was a really, really fun watch. I'm not sure how many stars I'm gonna give it yet. I literally just stopped. I literally just shut it off when we came to get on to record today, so I haven't had time to really sit and think through it. But I am a verbal processor,
Sure.
so talking through this is really great, because I think then, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I've said this before, but there are times where you go to a book club and I absolutely hate the book, hate it, hate it, hate it. I hate it so much, and everyone in the room hates it. And then we talk about it, and then I'm like, "Huh, I think I might give that another star or 2, because my
Mm,
conversation about it was really good."
sure.
And so it makes me examine it, and I feel like that way about this one, where there's so much to think about. So, uh, so many themes and little tiny details,
Yeah.
um, that it's good for me to have a chance to think through it before I give it a star rating. So I'll have to decide what I want to do on that.
Well, you
But I liked
already.
it.
I did too. Yeah, I already said I gave it 5 stars. I think it's a
Mhm.
perfect. It might be one of my favorite comedies. Honestly,
Hmm.
it's
Mhm.
it's just. I really like the balance that it strikes, of really goofy, over the top slapstick, and then like some real stuff that they're talking about,
Yeah.
and with like some actual stakes too. This isn't like Dumb and Dumber, where it's just like
Mm.
absolute nonsense. That's dumb and I hate it. It's like, no, this is there's like some stuff here. There's a lot of like dumb stuff that happens. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure that like some highbrow, film snob is like, John Goodman and the guy are just screaming in the car. This is not a
Oh,
joke. This is not a joke. This is yelling.
oh,
I know.
yeah.
I mean, it's not a smart joke, but it is funny that the baby keeps falling off the car.
I think it's very funny. And he's always sitting up just perfectly fine. And he's on his cute little face sitting in the middle of the street. And then I'm anxious.
Right.
Then it's like I'm watching John Goodman drive so stinking fast around those corners. I'm like, he's going to plow into that baby.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be so sad if he plows into that baby and he comes so stinking close. Oh my gosh, what a nail biter. I'm so nervous about that. All I
Oh.
can think about was that kid sitting in the street.
Hey, speaking of your revelation,
Yeah.
the biker guy and Nick Cage do the same move, where Nick Cage is driving to pick up the diapers, and he just like reaches down and snags it, and so
Yes.
does the
Oh,
biker guy with the baby in the road.
look at that.
That's another connection. There's
Hmm.
some there. I think you're onto something.
Yeah, I think so too. I think if I sat down, I wonder if you go back to the beginning and you rewatch it thinking that through, like looking at it from that perspective. Like, are there any clues here about the fact that maybe his somebody is alive or there's a tie or is there
Mm.
something with the tattoo that we didn't notice or whatever, I wonder if there are lots of little things that could lead you to that.
And he gets like a premonition, which is like that's like the only
Mhm.
time it gets like fantastical, where it's
Yeah.
like he has these visions of this super evil guy. Like that's
Yeah.
kind of weird. It's like out of place almost.
Yeah. I was trying to think of what all happened in that premonition. I remember him like driving through fire and then leaving a
Yeah.
trail of fire behind him.
He shoots
I
he throws a grenade at a bunny rabbit and then shoots a
Oh,
bird.
I know that makes me
That
sad.
was so funny. When
Like he doesn't like things, especially little things or
yeah,
something like.
he's especially tough on the little things.
Yes, yes.
That's what I love when they blow up that rabbit. You can see that they had like a stuffed like dummy because they
Uh-huh.
explode it and then there's like something that flies off in the distance.
And that little salamander
Oh
that on
yeah.
the rock, I was like, "Oh no, oh
That's right. He shoots the salamander.
no." But this is what I like about this movie. Let me tell you what I like.
Hmm.
After he was blown up, we don't get a random arm landing in the ground
Get his
on the
boot.
ground with blood and gross stuff. I appreciated the lack of gross, that,
Oh sure.
like, it was just a smoking boot, and you get the point, and I didn't need to see any blood and guts to get the idea of what was happening, and I didn't have to see exploded rabbits and explode you know what I mean?
I mean, it's a cartoon. It's fine.
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
As a sensitive watcher, I appreciated the fact that you can get those things across to me without having to see the blood and guts. I realize there's an art behind it, but,
Sure.
um, I mean, so Jenna and I are watching Glow Up, which is a reality show for makeup artists, and they always end up doing a week that's gross, like
Mm.
special effects makeup.
Oh sure.
And it'll be like, oh, look, oh, he did this amazing boil that's open with pus coming out of it. And oh, look at that. She's got teeth coming through her cheek or whatever. Gross. And I am watching them do it, and I know that it is fake. I cannot. So I just say to Jenna, when it's those episodes, I work on a puzzle or something and I don't watch. I just listen because it bothers me so much. And it's so
Really.
ridiculous because I'm watching them create it. I know it's not real,
Hmm.
but there is something in my constitution that it doesn't matter that I know it's not real. I just, it just bothers me so bad. And then I feel like such a weenie because it's like, oh gosh, Christy, come on. You know, and people are like, get a grip. But I just, for some reason, there's something in me that just I
Hmm.
can't get past it for some reason.
Yeah, that's kind of shocking that even in like the creation of the makeup, like, can you not, you can't even watch like behind the scenes stuff
No.
of, that's interesting.
Mm-mm, mm-mm. I know it is so funny. I'm watching them with their little brushes and their silicone, and they're putting the like prosthetics on their faces, and they're
Hmm.
I'm going to show you how to make a scab. The scab would be 3 days old. See, the bruise behind it is a little bit yellow. It's starting to heal, and look,
Hmm.
the edges need to be jagged. And I'm like, blah, gross.
Well,
Oh, I just can't take it.
well,
So
there's,
anyway, all that to say, I appreciated that about this movie. Like we still had things that were happening, but there
mhm,
wasn't anything that was so gross that you
yeah,
get the picture. It was great.
yeah. That's what like. I mean, Fargo is pretty bloody. I think
Hmm.
Blood Simple is too. No Country for Old Men is. But I was like, is there anything like that in The Big Lebowski? I know that the one of the characters gets their toe cut off and then it gets sent the to a Lebowski. There's two Lebowskis in The Big Lebowski. So I'm
Hmm.
like, I don't think they show that though. It's just like a little toe that they have in an envelope. But I'm like, I don't remember if that one is particularly bloody because I'm sure you would like that one because that one has a very similar tone
Yeah.
and
Well,
it's
and it's
very
got
goofy.
so many good people in it.
Oh
That's
yeah,
another one that I feel people still talk about, and it comes up all the time.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, that is one I haven't seen, but I like a lot of the people that are in it, so
yeah.
I really like it.
I know it's rated R, but it also just has a lot of language, and I feel like
Mm.
that's probably what it is.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe one day we'll do the Big Lebowski. I think Big Lebowski and Oh Brother Where Art Thou are probably locks. At some point, we'll be doing
Okay.
those because those are fun.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great. I liked it. I really enjoyed this. I thank you for making me watch my first Coen Brothers movie.
Of
I very much
course.
enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And also, let me just say also at the end, I remember watching Moonstruck when it came out with Cher and Nick Cage, and I thought Nick Cage was so great. And
Hmm.
he is not a particularly attractive person, in my opinion. He's
Yeah.
fine.
Hmm.
He is not like a super sexy man. He's not like a Chris Hemsworth or something like that,
Yeah.
right?
No.
He has some crazy kind of charisma.
Oh yeah.
And even though he's kind of the smarmy guy, like there is just something about him that he's just so dang likable. I I
Yeah.
really en- I really enjoy him a lot.
Yeah. It is weird that like I feel like over the last 15 years he has been in like some really really great movies, but
Hmm.
also really terrible stuff. And I feel like everybody still likes this guy. And he's
Uh-huh.
like a comic supervillain where he owns dinosaur bones and he spent like millions of dollars for the first Superman comic. And it's like
Hmm.
he's like constantly in debt, which I guess is why he takes every single movie that's offered to him. But it's
Yes.
just it's crazy where it's like he'll go from like some random movie that you'll find on Redbox to Pig, which is like one of the most emotionally nuanced movies I've ever seen. I was like, what? I don't understand this guy at all.
I remember you really liked that one. What was the one most recently where isn't it something that oh shoot. What was his most recent movie? It seemed
Uh,
so familiar.
the one where he plays himself,
There you go.
The
Yeah.
Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Yeah, have you seen that?
I have not.
Okay.
That one didn't look very good. It,
Okay.
it was like Pedro Pascal is in it, and he
Mm.
plays like a crime boss whose birthday it's like his 40th birthday or something, and he's like, for my birthday, I want Nick Cage to fly out and be my friend, and so then it's like a buddy action comedy. I'm like,
Okay.
oh, I don't know, but then like the trailer was like, I have this wax sculpture of Nick Cage and he has golden guns. And I'm like, oh, this seems like it's going to be really self indulgent. I don't
I never
know.
heard anything about it. Did you? Like, as far as what the reception was for it?
Um, if I remember right, it was like right down the middle. Some people liked
Okay.
it, some people didn't.
Okay.
It was not universally acclaimed by any
Mm.
means.
Mhm. Yeah, he's an interesting cat, and,
Yeah.
I saw his house. Do you
You
know that
saw
I
his
saw his
house in Las
I drove
Vegas?
drove by his house in Newport, Rhode Island.
Oh,
He bought he bought a mansion out there on,
really?
like, Mansion Row out in
Oh,
Newport. He spent so much money on this
is he
house.
from there?
I don't think so.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
think so. He just bought this really beautiful old house, like, it's over by the Vanderbilt houses,
Oh, okay.
like, old money house, like,
Yeah.
house mansion, beautiful, historical home. He bought it, and then, he was trying to sell it at a serious loss, big loss, and when I was there, he hadn't sold it yet, but anyway, that was his house. I drove by his house.
Did you see him?
I didn't. I tried to find him, and I'm like, I feel like Newport, Rhode Island would be a place where people would hang out, famous people would hang out. I don't know. It's a
Maybe.
cool city.
I feel like Nick Cage, he's just always in Las Vegas. I thought that's where he lived.
Well, maybe this might be like a second house, like a vacation house or something. I don't think
Probably.
it probably wasn't his primary residence. I'm guessing he has houses everywhere,
Probably.
like in multiple places. But yeah, the tour guide was telling us that he was trying to sell it and he was losing money on it. Um,
Yeah. That
but it was a
tracks.
very beautiful house and it was overlooking the ocean. It was very, very lovely. It was kind of over by the Breakers, which
Oh,
was the Vanderbilt house that's kind of in that neighborhood.
gotcha.
It's delightful. I would have liked to have toured Nick Cage's house. That would have been cool.
You should have offered to
I
buy it, and he would have showed you
sure,
around.
absolutely. Could totally do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Newport, Rhode Island is a cool place. Anybody, if you want to go find a cool place to go and look at old houses, go to Newport, Rhode Island and tour yourself some houses. There, it's the best. I love old houses. It's my nerd thing that I do. But yeah, so that was cool. Also, the Kennedys, Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, her home. I was able to go see her house. And then there's a president that's from Rhode Island, and I got to actually tour his house, but I don't remember what president it was now. But that was all on that same tour. It was
Wow.
fantastic. Yeah, that was fun. It's Old Home Week. My kids love it.
I-
They
Not
get
my jam.
no, I would drag them, although I'm surprised because you like history that you wouldn't be interested in because this is what I like. I like old houses and I love architecture and I
Mm,
love art. Like I love all of those things.
sure.
But what I really love is the stories. So if I can tour an old house and have them tell me about the people that lived there and who came to visit and how did they live and
Mm,
what was their business and what did their parties look like, and
sure.
that to me is what I really really love. It's not so much the home itself, although that is fun. I love the stories, so if you can tour an old house where they know those stories, that is my ideal.
Yeah.
It's great. So I would think as a history lover you would enjoy that as well.
Well, I'm more of a museum man. I like
Okay.
the like actually seeing some of the artifacts and then like the descriptions of stuff. Like that's more my speed. I don't necessarily like houses because then it's like this is this person's house,
Mm-hmm.
and like even in Iowa, there's the Jordan House,
I
and
love
it's
that.
like that one's really cool because it was like part of the Underground Railroad. So it was like
Right.
here's where they used to smuggle people. I'm like, okay, that's sick.
Mm-hmm.
If it's more like something specific where it's like involving greater events of history, then I find
Mm-hmm.
that interesting. But if it's just like this is a rich person's house from 100 years ago, look at all the stuff that they bought with all their cash. I'm like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah,
rich.
I think it's interesting. We are way off topic. We are always off topic, but you know what? So what? Um, so we're doing the Vanderbilt house. When I went on this vacation, it was me and two of my girlfriends who also love old houses, which if you like old houses, you need to find someone else who likes old houses that you can go on these vacations with so you're not dragging your family who hates it.
Sure.
So the three of us were like, we're going to go, we're going to listen to the little tour in the headphones, we're going to
Mm,
do all of the extra features, we're going to do the whole thing. That was our vacation. And so leading up to that trip, we were going to a Vanderbilt home. We were going to the Breakers. So we found a book that was about the Vanderbilt family that lived there.
mm,
And so reading that ahead of time, and then you see this home and it's like, okay, yeah, I know who these people are. I know what they did for work. Um, and they had such a big part of that time, the industrialist period
sure.
where, part of industry and all of that kind of stuff. So knowing some of that, but there's also some really great things about suffrage. Some of the women were real pioneers when it came to suffrage, and these women who had a lot of money would host these giant gatherings of women who were trying to fight for the vote in their tea houses behind their house. It was
Sure.
so great. So it's like it does pull in some of the larger history, um, depending on who owned the home. You have to think like these are the really big mansions in Newport, but
Sure.
these people are influential and they are going to impact history or be a part of history in some way because of the money and the power that they had.
Hmm.
Um, but anyway, yeah, a lot of them still have the original furnishings. It's like so cool. And to see the kitchen, the way the kitchens worked and the old coal stoves. And oh gosh, it was so great. Love it. Love it so much.
So
Okay.
check out Big Mansions if you can.
Go to Newport, Rhode
Go
Island.
to Newport, Rhode Island. If Nick
Yeah,
Cage is still there, probably isn't, but just in
maybe.
case.
Yeah. You could also go to Asheville, North Carolina to go see the Biltmore, just the
Mhm.
Vanderbilt brother.
Sure.
And they could probably use some tourism dollars after that damage from the hurricane. So if you want
Oh
to
yeah.
support a community that's really struggling while also seeing the biggest, most beautiful house on the East Coast, go to Asheville, North Carolina, and go to the Biltmore.
There you go. Thanks for plugging the Biltmore.
I'm
Uh,
all about the tourism.
but
Yes.
speaking of
Yes.
plugging, what are we doing next week?
Well, I would like to tell you that, but can I do a really, really quick recollection correction corner from
Well,
last week, or would
sure.
you like me to say what we're doing next week first?
No, do your corrections.
Okay. All right. So last week, I kind of got on a tangent about a different world. We were talking about Lisa Bonet. And I was like, I'm pretty sure Lisa Bonet got fired from The Cosby
Oh,
Show.
right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to read this to you, or I need to consult my notes.
Okay.
Okay. So Bill Cosby did not like Lisa Bonet. And he said that she was argumentative, she was unprofessional, she was often late to the set. So he just didn't really care for her from the beginning. It sounded like they kind of clashed a little bit.
Sure.
So in 1987, when she was 18 years old, she filmed a movie with Mickey Rourke called Angel Heart. Okay, so
Okay.
she is 18 years old. There is a scene in there that would have earned an X rating. Um, and so they edited it down. So it was rated R, but there was still a nude scene with her. And at the time, she was 18. So she was of age. But Cosby did not like that. He did not like that this his daughter on the show who should have this squeaky clean image because that's very much what the Cosby Show was. Everyone was supposed to toe the line and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
She was always kind of the rebel, and her being in this movie like just really cheesed him off. He was mad because he already didn't really care for her very much.
Okay.
So they send her off to a different world. So she goes off to that show. And so that movie was done in 1987. Okay. So that same year, by the time the movie released, she was 19. She's on a different world. It's season 1 of A Different World, and she's living her best life, and she's, hanging out with Marissa Tomei, who's her roommate on the show.
Uh-huh.
And on her 20th birthday in 1987, she elopes with Lenny Kravitz. Okay.
Okay.
So she's on a different world. She gets pregnant and she gets fired. So there you go. So she was only on I think she was only on season 1 of A Different World.
Of her own show? Of her own spinoff?
Yeah, her own spinoff. Well, it says yes, yeah, her own spinoff. So she got pregnant. They're like, well, we can't have Denise pregnant at college and she's not married.
Uh-huh.
So she gets fired and then she comes back. Well, let me take this back. Because I saw different things at different places. Some places it said she was let go, and some places said she left the show, but it didn't say why.
Hmm.
So, I don't know. I'll clarify that because it was some places were very definite that yes, she was fired. Okay. So
Okay.
then 1 year later, she has her daughter Zoe. Well, she's not pregnant for a year. That would be a miracle. She's not pregnant for a year, but she has her baby. Her baby is Zoe Kravitz,
Yeah.
who we all know and love. And then she ends up going back to the Cosby Show. So she doesn't go back to A Different World. She goes back to
Oh.
the Cosby Show. And then they fired her in 1991.
Oh
from The
man.
Cosby Show. So, fun little side fact there. She is still really good friends with Marissa Tomei, and Marissa
Oh.
Tomei is the godmother of all three of her children.
Oh,
So,
nice.
isn't that a nice little story? I like
Yeah,
that
that's
part.
nice.
I thought that was really great. So anyway, yes. So what I was remembering as nude photos was actually a movie
Hmm.
where there were nude scenes,
Gotcha.
and Cosby didn't like that. Very controversial. So, and she
Yeah.
was so young. She was just an 18-year-old baby.
Yeah, everything about that seems like that movie probably shouldn't have been made. But
Mhm.
also, like Bill Cosby's comments, where it's like she's unprofessional, that almost sounds like Hollywood speak for she turned him down sexually.
Yeah. Well, she is one of the few cast members of The Cosby Show who did not back him up when all of those allegations came out and when he was convicted.
Yep.
She came out publicly and said, I am not surprised. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
that
who knows
kind of
what's
speaks
happening
to
there.
that.
Yeah, she was vocal about saying she was not surprised about the fact that that was what was happening. Okay, so my other part of recollection correction corner is I was talking about Burt Reynolds and his
Oh
nude
yeah.
center,
Hmm.
and I said it was in Playgirl. It was actually in Cosmopolitan magazine,
Oh.
which was shocking to me. 1972, April of 1972, Burt Reynolds was the centerfold in Cosmo. It was a nude photo. He was on a bearskin rug.
Yeah.
But he was laying in such a way that his arm kind of covered the parts that,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah. But he said later that he regretted it because Deliverance was released later that year,
Hmm.
and he thinks um, that him participating in that hurt his career. He
Mm,
felt like no one took him seriously after that centerfold was put out, and so even though he was in Deliverance in this very serious movie, um, he just felt like he would never get the recognition he needed or possibly deserved, or the roles he wanted because of that centerfold. So I thought
that's
that was
sad.
interesting. Yeah,
People
that's
still talk
empowering.
about Deliverance, though.
What?
People still talk about Deliverance.
They do. They
Yeah.
do. Do they talk about his performance in it?
I don't know.
Because that
I've
had
never
already been
seen it.
filmed. I think Deliverance had already been filmed when he did the
Mm,
centerfold. So,
sure.
like, after that, he was doing things like Cannonball Run,
Right.
like some of
Yeah.
these slapsticky. He did a comedy in the 80s called Evening Shade. I mean, he was in Boogie Nights, I guess, but like,
Yeah.
you just didn't see him in anything of real heft after that, I don't think.
Well, Boogie
Um,
Nights is like a pretty prestigious. That's Paul Thomas
Mhm.
Anderson.
Yep. And that would have been what, in the early 2000s, maybe ish?
Yeah, around there. Late
So,
90s,
like,
early 2000s.
so 30 years after Deliverance ish, something like that. He had 30 years of doing kind of lightweight stuff. Um, yeah, anyway, I thought that was interesting. The founder of Playgirl magazine was inspired by the fact that that centerfold was so popular for Cosmo.
Mm.
That was where Playgirl magazine came from.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because there was a lot of enthusiasm about that. And Helen Gorley Brown, who was the editor of Cosmo at the time, was like sick of the fact that there were naked women all the time, but there were never any naked men. And she was like, well, I like looking at naked men. So so that was, she asked him personally
Oh,
if he would be willing to do that centerfold. So I thought that
interesting.
was interesting. Yeah. So anyway, that's it. That's it for recollection. I spoke too
So
soon.
close.
Recollection correction corner for today.
All right.
That
Well,
is,
those are good updates. I was kind of curious about those.
yeah, it is interesting. Um, it is interesting too. Like you think about, I'm thinking back to events that happened in the late 80s. So
Hmm.
many, many, many moons ago, and how you can remember bits and pieces and you're just so sure you remember it, right? And then you go out there, it's wow. I mean, I was close. You can see I was in the ballpark. It was very, very close, but just not exactly right. And also, it's very difficult to find that information these days.
Is
Like if
it?
I try to go out and find that information, I get so many different stories because there
Mm.
wasn't much firsthand. It was more like people talking about it.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And so the things I'm getting are Reddits. And I'm trying not
Right.
to use Reddit as a source because it's Reddit,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not,
yeah.
so it's kind of hard to find reputable and consistent information. But
Hmm.
okay, what are we going to watch this time? Okay, so we had a conversation last time about Black History Month and how important it is to support Black creators
That's
and Black
right.
artists.
Yeah,
Very passionate about that. And then we had a conversation about the fact that you and I have already seen a lot of the ones that are more biopic
sure. Malcolm X and
movies.
Selma.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I started reading the book Erasure by Percival Everett last week because I'm trying to read Black authors this month as well. And Erasure is the basis for the movie American Fiction.
Oh, okay.
I would like to watch American Fiction this week.
That is a great idea. That was one that I missed and I was wanting to watch it.
Me too. So I'm really excited about it. The book was fantastic. So Percival Everett is he's a pretty prolific author, and but I don't know that he has been as popular. I think last year his book Erasure kind of took off a little bit
Sure.
because of the movie. But this year he wrote a book called James. And this book that he wrote is a reimagining of the Huck Finn story told from Jim's perspective.
Hmm.
And so Jim's real name is James. That is what he goes by amongst his friends. It's only the white people in his life who call him Jim, but he
Mm,
prefers James. But he can't say he prefers James because he is enslaved. So it is telling the story from his perspective. It is an absolutely fabulous book. It was my top book of last year. I
wow.
loved it. And I hadn't read Huck Finn since I was in high school. Um, and I don't know that you need to. I think you would get more out of it if you did read them and it was fresh in your mind. So I think there are a lot of nods, obviously, because you're changing perspectives.
Sure.
But the story on its own stands. It's amazing. It's just amazing. Okay, so I joined a book club that I had to pay money to join so that I could sit on a Zoom with Percival Everett because I
Oh,
just was such a fangirl. And he was amazing and very serious person.
mm,
Kind of hoped he would be I don't know what I was hoping for because his books are very serious topics, but have some humor in them.
sure.
And so I think, when you read something, you're like, oh, these books are very, there's a lot of funny stuff. You think, oh, this person's going to be a really funny person. He's very serious
Mm,
person. And I think he probably, because his book was so successful, as in he won the Pulitzer this year, he won all of the book awards. Like he has been a sweep for all of the book awards last year.
hmm.
And that hasn't happened in a really long time. It's unusual for a book to take all of the awards, and he did. It's such an amazing work of fiction.
Was that for James?
For James.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
James is it's everywhere. It's so good. I think you would really like it. In fact, I think you would really enjoy it.
Okay.
So anyway, so I go to this book club with Percival Everett, and I have in my mind what I think he's probably like, and he's nothing like what I thought he would be like. And I think he's probably like I have gone and spoken in so many bookstores and in all of these book clubs, and we're not having significant conversations. And
Mm,
I'm saying the same things over and over again. I'm thinking about this. He's a good 6 to 8 months into his book tour at this point,
sure.
and he's still winning awards. So he has to keep plugging it, right? So maybe he is normally a funny guy and he's just over it. I don't know.
Maybe.
But for the first part of this book club, he seems very he's answering questions, but he doesn't seem like he's super engaged because we
Mm,
were probably asking the same questions everybody always asks. And then there comes a point where he finds out that we've met 5 times about his book already before even meeting with him, and that we have dissected the cover. And
mm,
we have gone through all the most minute of details of this book. We've talked through really significant themes. And it was almost like you could see a transformation happen in his face where he was like, oh, we're here for a discussion.
yeah.
We're really going to talk about this. You guys have thought about this. You have, put in the work to have a really good discussion about my book. And it was like
Yeah.
he lit up and he was a totally different person. And I think it was just like we could have a really fantastic conversation. And it
Hmm.
was really fun to see. To see him he seemed to find joy in that moment to be like, "Oh, okay, I see what we're here for." So anyway, I'm a big
Wow.
fan.
That's
I'm a big
great.
like I spent a lot of money to be in this book club just for him. Okay. So I thought Erasure would be a great book to read, and so I just finished it last week. And
Okay.
like you, it had been on my list, my movie list to
Sure.
watch American Fiction because I love Sterling K. Brown.
Hmm.
this movie won a bunch of awards during award season, including Best Adapted Screenplay.
Yeah.
He won the Oscar for that. They won the Oscar for that. But Jeffrey Wright and Sterling K. Brown were nominated all over the place.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was voted the best. I wrote it down. Oh, it was the AFI Movie of the Year
Oh,
last year.
that makes
So
sense. Yeah.
it beat Oppenheimer and some of the others that were, so big.
I think that's
But
deserved.
anyway, yes, yeah, I'm really excited to see what this is like
Yeah.
after reading the book because okay, I won't say anything else. I'll save it for when we discuss it because, well, I do want to say because this is like the basic plot.
Okay.
I'm going to give you just a smidge.
Well, I know what it's about.
Okay, so what I want to say about the book then is that there's a book within the book. We're reading the book that he
Oh,
wrote.
right. Yeah, yeah.
It's so interesting. I love that format. Like I'm learning about these characters, and then right smack in the middle, it's like, okay, let's take a few minutes to read this book.
Mm.
And so it wasn't particularly long, but it was the actual book that ends up being referred to throughout the rest of the book and through the movie. So
Mm.
that's kind of interesting that that he actually wrote this book within a book. He is brilliant. I can't wait to see this. I'm very, very pumped.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good pick. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be good. Now it is nowhere for free. It is on Prime right now to rent, so
Okay.
we'll rent it on Prime and watch it. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, I'm super pumped.
All
Very, very.
right. Well,
I love Sterling K. Brown.
I love Jeffrey Wright.
Oh, I don't think I've ever seen him in anything.
What?
What else
Well,
has he been in?
he's kind of become a Wes Anderson regular at this
Oh,
point. He
oh,
was in The French Dispatch and he was in Asteroid City.
okay.
Uh, Wes Anderson's two most recent feature films. I think he might have been in one of the short films that Wes Anderson did 2 years ago.
Okay.
And he most recently, well, I don't know about most recently, but he's probably most known for he's Commissioner Gordon in the new Batman, in The Batman.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that one.
No. But he's very good in it. He's
Okay.
very good in everything. So
I've been seeing, I saw him do a ton of interviews during award season. I really like him. I
yeah,
think he's really great, but I just have never seen him act. So I'm excited to see him for the first time. I saw Tracy Ellis Ross is in it.
Hmm.
And I really like her too. Did you know that she is Diana Ross's daughter?
No, I did not.
Interesting, isn't it? I know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I like that little tidbit about her. Anyway, I'm really excited about it because I like the people in it, and now I know the story, and I like being able to compare
There we
the book
go.
to the movie.
Yeah,
So
you'll be able to give us the breakdown on how it's different.
yeah, I won't spend too much time on it because I know it's not interesting when you haven't read the book, but I may just point out a couple differences just because
Sure.
sometimes that's interesting to know. So
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, that's what we're gonna do.
All right. Well, next week, American Fiction. But if you can't get enough of us, we have plenty of other episodes. Like we reviewed the only two Break-In movies. We also talked about Doctor Strangelove and Princess Mononoke. So we have a lot of, well, not a lot, but we have a few. We're working on our catalog. But if you can't get enough of me, I'm over on the Boy Time podcast, where I basically do this show, but with my friend Babby, who I also do Boy Time, just Boy Time, where we talk about music and react to the hit new albums that come out and old albums. We just recorded a new Nick Drake reaction. Spoilers, we both loved it.
Oh, great.
So, yeah, Nick Drake, one of the best folk artists of the 70s. So, we were very excited for that.
That's cool.
So,
Can I ask you something that's tangential super quickly? And
sure.
we've already talked, maybe you talked about this on your other show, so you don't want to talk about it. And if that's the case, then we can direct them that direction. But I was
Okay.
curious about, did you guys talk? I'm assuming you talked Super Bowl with Kendrick.
Oh, yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Just give me that big overarching. How did you like it? What did you think?
I like it. I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was interesting the song choices that he did. Most of the songs that he did were from his most recent album. So he wasn't like out there playing the hits. It wasn't like when like Bruno Mars did it or when Usher did it last year, where they were just like, well, let's just play the big songs. Or
Mhm.
even when Kendrick was at the Super Bowl 2 or 3 years ago with Dre and Eminem and Snoop, where it was like, okay, well, we got to play All Right and we got to play Humble and
Mhm.
Money Trees. And it's like, okay, that kind of makes sense for him as like a, I guess he was kind of a headliner, but one of four.
Yeah.
But now that he's
Pretty
out
big
there, he
deal.
was like, he played two songs from the Beef, and
Mhm.
then I think one song that wasn't on the new album, and then it was all just new songs. And I thought, I mean, he's really great. The artistry there is really, really great. His manager, Dave Free, and him have their label PG Lang, and I think they did most of the visuals.
Okay.
So I think the NFL and Jay Z's team over at the halftime, whatever, they didn't really have much input. They were just like,
Mm.
Kendrick, just do what you want to do.
Nice.
And so that was pretty cool, where they
Mhm.
were really hands off. And I like Sam Jackson was there, and
Mhm.
uh, and he was kind of like, um, he was kind of like the representation of the American, like of the
He was
people
Uncle Sam.
watching. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that's really funny because like the things that Sam Jackson was saying in the performance are things that I'm hearing from people who didn't like the performance. Where it's like this isn't the time for these sorts of messages. Like whatever, we're just here to enjoy it, keep it chill and fun and light. And I'm like, that's so funny that like he got out in front of it and they're still falling for it.
Yep.
Um,
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you had a brain in your head, you would see exactly what he was doing. It
oh
was
yeah,
so, and I've seen so many people breaking it down, and I am like, oh my gosh, you are amazing. And I am
oh
not a
yeah,
huge Kendrick fan. I don't even know that I know any of Kendrick's music, but I can very much get behind what, like the messages that he was getting across
oh yeah,
without like being in your face. And if you were not paying attention, you could see it one way. And
sure.
but if you were paying attention, you'd be like, can you see what he's doing right now?
Oh yeah.
Because it was great. They were like, oh yeah, Samuel Jackson, he was like Uncle Sam. And and the dancing, I mean, okay, I'm just looking at the performance itself too.
Sure.
Like, the choreography was so great, and the
Mhm.
American flag stuff, and where he comes like right down the middle of that flag, and I'm like,
Uh-huh.
oh, this is so good.
Yeah, yeah.
I really enjoyed it a lot. He's so cool.
He's very cool. I think he's like straight up a genius. He's
Oh yeah.
probably and I don't think I'm gonna get a lot of flack for this. I think he might be one of the best American artists, period.
Mm-hmm.
He is just insanely smart when it comes to that and delivering messages effectively. And I'm
Yeah.
just like really in love with what he's been doing right now. Where like his most recent album, riding off of this beef with Drake, and like his whole angle on that was like, we need to unite as a culture and not let these people like Drake just like steal stuff that we made. And so,
Mm-hmm.
like, that whole thing, like, not like us being like this big West Coast jam where he's like, I'm going to bring us back to our roots because he's from Compton. He's like where it was all happening.
Yeah.
He grew up and saw Dre and Tupac in a music video and like was inspired. And now he's out here, he's trying to like unite the gangs and trying to bring people together in like a very divided time to be like, no, we are focusing on fighting ourselves and like the real problem is external. And I feel like that a lot of the stuff that he was like doing visually in that show was to spread that message. And I'm like, this is just
Mhm.
really, really great. Um,
Yeah.
I'm not going to like sit here and say that he's like the Messiah. I've been seeing some of that where it's like he's the next prophet. And I'm like, well, we can't put him on that pedestal. And he even
Mm-hmm.
has songs where he's like, don't do that. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
am a mortal man. That's the last song
Right.
on his album To Pimp a Butterfly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm like, yeah, he's really great. He's one of the best artists. And I thought his performance was great. So,
Yeah. I've seen so many people talk about how wonderful it is. And I've also seen commentary from people who are absolutely clueless,
yes.
where I'm like, I don't understand this, how
Yeah.
you come away with that. I think it was incredibly bold
Yes.
of
Oh, yeah.
him to be in that setting with politician sitting in that arena to say the things he was doing, to send the messages he was sending,
Yeah.
and to do it in a way that was subversive enough that you could be clueless or you could see what he was doing and just be in awe of the message he was sending in that
Oh yeah.
moment. I was very inspired by it. I thought it was
Yeah.
great. And I saw the Black National Anthem was sung at the beginning of the game. I saw that performance. Someone had posted it somewhere, so I watched it. Um, I go to the MLK and Juneteenth celebrations in our city,
Sure.
and I had never heard the Black National Anthem before I started going to those, and so I'd never heard it sung professionally.
Mm.
Um, and man, alive. I mean, I've heard it, but when you hear somebody who can really sing, it's like, oh my goodness, it's such an amazing song, and the words are so great. And I'm so glad they do that.
Oh yeah.
I'm glad that makes me really happy that they do.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah. It was really, really great.
Hmm.
If you're wanting to get into Kendrick, listen to Pimp a Butterfly. It's probably
Okay.
the best album I've ever heard. And
Mm.
if you like jazz, can't
Hmm.
go wrong. It's a
Okay.
phenomenal listen, front to back. Uh, Honestly, that or Good Kid, Mad City. But I don't think you would necessarily like Good Kid, Mad City. But that
Okay.
one is a like, oh, that one is not. It's not rough, but like it is. It's the story of him as a
Mm.
teenager in
Yeah.
Compton, and like he is a good kid in a mad city, and a lot of it is about like gang violence and like how one of his friends was killed. That's the one that has shoot, is it Maya Angelou, the poet?
Oh,
She's in
I
that.
love her.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Which is kind of crazy. That was his second album, and he got Maya Angelou
Mm.
to be like in the climax of the story where it's like his friend is gunned down, and like as like they're distraught, they're like wanting to get revenge, and like we need
Mm.
to kill the people that killed our friend. She comes along and is like, you guys are too angry, you guys need to
Mm.
accept Jesus, because all of his albums are very like Christian coded. And so like
Yeah.
the salvation that he finds in the end is through Christianity, and that's
Ah.
what stops him from being going
Hmm.
down that dark road.
Yeah.
Um and so I don't know. I love the guy. I think he's absolutely
Yeah.
phenomenal. So
I was very impressed. I love Maya Angelou. I saw Maya Angelou. Have I told you this?
I don't think so.
Okay, I'm a huge fan. I adore her. I've read I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings multiple times. I just think she is just such a wise. There are people that come along who have a wisdom that is just beyond explanation,
Oh yeah.
and every word that comes out of their mouth is like a work of art. I feel even when you read, like when you read her poetry, of course, when you see her perform her poetry, you can go out and watch videos of her performing her poetry, and it is so powerful. But then you read her fiction, and her fiction is like poetry in prose form.
Mhm.
Every sentence, everything is just so amazing. She's so talented. Anyway, but herself, her voice is so distinctive. And I
Yes.
saw she was coming to Des Moines to Drake University, and I was
Mm.
like, I don't care what I have to do. I am going to see Maya Angelou. It is like dreamy. And I think I took my sister and maybe my mom. I think that's right. The three of us went down to see her do a reading and be interviewed, and it was so amazing. The room full, it was a very diverse room, which is also amazing to be in the middle of, people from every walk of life
Mhm.
um, and every race and all of that. It was just amazing. And now she's gone, so you can't see her live anymore, but I would recommend going out and watching her on YouTube because her poetry still stands the test of time.
Oh
It's
yeah.
really inspirational and powerful poetry.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I feel like I end every one of these shows with a call to action. That's my call to action. Go find yourself a Maya Angelou video and watch her read some poetry. You'll be inspired.
Absolutely. Yeah, she's
Hmm.
great. I just,
Hmm.
for some reason in my head, I was like, I know she's not Maya Rudolph. I'm like, for some reason, that was the only name that was going through my head. I'm like, that I know
Oh,
that's not right. I know that's not right.
oh yeah, yeah. I love her so much. She's so great. I love Maya Rudolph too. I love them both. Maya Rudolph is fantastic.
She's good, yeah.
Very talented.
Hmm.
Yeah. Her mom was an opera singer, I think. Opera singer or just a singer? Can't remember. Anyway, her
Uh-oh.
mom was a singer of some sort. Anne Hathaway's mom was an opera singer.
Anne Hathaway was married to William Shakespeare.
True.
You had to think about it for a second.
You're so right. It's funny. Okay. I will stop.
Okay. Well, that's our show then. Next week, American Fiction.
Yes.
That's all I have to say.
All right. Support your local library and go call your mom.
Bye bye, everybody.
Bye.